Now, this is a story for Edith, who wanted a family that turned into witches. Oh my gosh, I think they were bad witches, so let's begin. Once upon a time, there was a family of 5. There was a mummy and a daddy, 2 girls, and a little baby boy. The baby was so tiny that he couldn't even walk or play with anything. In fact, his sisters had to be really careful when they touched him because he could get hurt really easily. He always had to be held by mom or dad or Jaime. And anyway, he was the boy, and there were 2 big sisters who were the best sisters in the world, and they had the best mummy and daddy in the world who loved them so much. In fact, if there was a prize for the best family, I think this family would win it, because even though they cried sometimes, and even though they shouted sometimes, and even though they had a fight sometimes, they were a team. They were a team of 5, the Fantastic 5, and they loved each other so much. And the daddy loved the girls and the boy and the family without question. And even though sometimes the little girl would say, "I don't love you, Daddy," he always said, "Well, I love you, and I'll always love you no matter what." And that was the same for all the children, no matter what, forever and ever and ever, till the end of eternity. And so because that was true, the girls and the boy grew up to be so strong and so brave, because they always knew that there was something that was not going to change, because everything changes. But one thing that was never going to change was the fact that Daddy loved them so much, and they would do anything to protect and love them. But back to the story, because that's the future story. But the story I'm going to tell you right now is about how this wonderful family all turned into witches. And it happened one day when they were on holiday. They were all on holiday to this wonderful hotel with a swimming pool in America. They'd flown there on the aeroplane, and they were in the aeroplane on the chairs that lay down to make a bed. And they'd fallen asleep, and when they woke up, they were in America. And they got a taxi to the hotel, and the hotel was like the most brilliant hotel they had ever seen. The swimming pool was nice and warm, and the food was amazing, and everything was just so perfect. There was ice cream and mandu and fish and all kinds of things. In fact, the morning buffet was the best thing. Anyway, let's get back to the story about how they turned into witches. As they were on this wonderful holiday, they took a bus tour around the city, like an open-top bus, and they put their earphones in and they listened to the stories of all the buildings and all the places that were famous. And then they came to the most famous candy shop in the whole world. It was the biggest and most famous candy shop ever. It was about 100 years old, and it was as big as the hotel itself. The bus stopped, and everybody got off and went into this candy shop. Well, the candy shop had escalators and elevators, and there were so many candies, it was unbelievable. They stayed there for like 4 hours, and you could try all the candies in the world. It was free. It was unbelievable. Well, anyway, as they were walking around, they got to the top of the building, and there was a little guy in the corner giving away some juicy drops. Now, Eleanor and Edith pulled Daddy's hand and go, "Daddy, look at these juicy drops. We're in the best candy shop in the world. Can we have some of those juicy drops?" Daddy looked at Mummy. Mummy looked at Daddy, and they shrugged their shoulders and were like, "Well, we're on holiday, and we're in the most famous candy shop in the whole wide world. Why not? Just once. Daddy nodded his head to the girls, and they ran like the wind to the juicy drop guy. They got 5 juicy drops. 1 for Eleanor, 1 for Edith, 1 for Mummy, 1 for Daddy, and they even got 1 for the little baby boy. Now, when they got back to the hotel, as they were just taking a rest, they ate the juicy drops and watched the telly. Because everybody was so excited, even the little baby got a little bit of juicy drops in his milk. It was a blue juicy drop, and it turned his milk blue. But you know what? When people are on holiday, they tend to just spend a bit more money and eat a bit more food and do things that they wouldn't do normally. So here we go, we've got a family, all with blue lips, blue milk in the juicy drops, and we're all watching telly. Well, that was how it happened. The witches had put the juicy drops in this candy store, and the witches actually owned the hotel. And as the family were eating the juicy drops with the blue lips, the witches put the TV onto mind control. And so the family are on the bed with the juicy drops, and the witches have put this crazy spirally thing on the telly, and the family just sat there like zombies, and they juicy drops turned their lips blue, turned their face blue, and then after about 1 hour their whole bodies were blue. And then the witches turned up the music on the telly, and they started turning green. After about 2 hours, the family were half blue, half green. After 3 hours, they had turned completely green, and the hair had turned completely black and curly, and that was it. All that was left was for the witches to use the telly to turn the family into proper witches. And by that I mean the telly was teaching them how to be witches. It was like a school on a telly, but they knew that the family had turned into witches and were like zombies that were fixed with their eyes wide open onto the telly, and they couldn't move. And so they used the telly to teach the family how to be witches and catch the children and lead them into their homes and then capture them into cages and eat them if they had to, and even pretend to be a nice family to get the magic from girls like Shirley. And it was great for the witches, and it was kind of great for the family because, well, they were witches now and they didn't know any better. Finally, the telly taught them how to pretend to be normal again and change the colour back to human colour, like pink skin or flesh colour. And that's what they did. They changed back, finished the last day in the hotel, took the airplane back to their house, and started to live a double life. One life was normal and one life was witches. And this is how the family turned into witches. And so through the day, the family were nice. But at night time, they would change their skin to green and try to figure out how to catch other boys and girls. Now, I'm not sure how this story ends, because I'm not sure how the family can be saved. I think that's a story for another time. And maybe Edith has an idea of how or who can save this family from becoming witches forever. The end.